Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Slash Filmcast. I am David Chen, and with me are
Devendra Hardawar.
And Jeff Kanata.
welcome to the show, everyone. What we're going to do today on the podcast is we're going to talk about some what we've been watching, and then we're going to move on into an in-depth review. This week, we're going to be reviewing Bong Joon-ho's newest movie, Parasite, which is out right now in limited release. And so that's what we got in store for you. You can find more episodes of this podcast at slashfilmcast.com. You can also email us at slashfilmcast@gmail.com. And of course, this podcast episode is brought to you for free thanks to our sponsors this week, Hunt a Killer and Pretty Litter. Hunt a Killer and Pretty Litter. Thanks so much to them for sponsoring us. All right, gents, I saw Parasite this past weekend at the Lincoln Square Theater in Bellevue, Washington, and I was really encouraged by how many people were there to see this foreign film with a bunch of subtitles. Like, the theater was almost full. How about you guys? Under what circumstances did you see Parasite?
Yeah, totally full at the Brooklyn Academy of Music because it was the second weekend. But I'll tell you, in New York, it was playing at the IFC Center. Like 40 screenings for that first weekend were all sold out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this feels good.
How about you, Jeff?
I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a movie theater across the street from my house.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty convenient for me. So I saw it there. It was a 10 p.m. screening on a Thursday night, so it wasn't full, but there were a fair amount of people there, and I just thought it was cool that it has opened wide enough to be at the theater across from my house. Theater across from my house, pretty great theater, I have to say. Has some pretty eclectic movies. It's not just going to give you your run-of-the-mill blockbuster stuff.
Man.
But
life in LA sounds great. Just movies right in front of your door. Step outside, movie.
It's the pesky fires that are also outside that are the downside. Step outside movies. Also, smoke inhalation. Your house is probably going to burn down. But the movies is great.
Stay safe out there, dude. Stay safe.
Everyone stay safe out there. Are you, do the fires impact your life in any way right now, Jeff? Like, do you see the fires when you go outside? Like, how's it impacting?
I think we talked about last year when I was directly in the fire line and really, really scared, and we were talking about evacuation and stuff. My family and I are very fortunate this time to not be in that situation. There are literally thousands of people who are in that situation this time around. So no, I don't see them. I can smell them, and I'm impacted insofar as traffic, and the 405 was closed today, and traffic is a nightmare, even more of a nightmare than usual in Los Angeles. But my woes this year, at least so far, are minuscule compared to what a lot of people are going through, where they are in the situation I was in last year. And it's ridiculous. This is a yearly occurrence now. This is just where we are with the climate of this planet, or the climate where I choose to live on this planet, where it's fire season in Los Angeles. And so the crazy high winds and dry conditions combine to make us have to just accept the fact that LA is going to burn every year, I guess, because it has every year for the last few years.
And also intermittently, millions of people lose power now in California. It's now a regular thing. This is crazy. Climate change is real.
It's not just that they lose power. It's that the companies decide to stop power.
The power monopoly is like, I didn't fix it. So we
didn't address the clear problems that were flagged for us. So instead, we're going to just remove power for thousands of people to try to prevent new fires. It's bonkers.
Yeah,
bonkers.
It does feel a little bit dystopian, right? That, like,
for sure,
if you're watching a dystopian movie, this would be a thing. Like those little world building touches that happen in movies. Like, oh, hey, they're shutting off power for 100,000 people. There's like brownouts, like voluntary brownouts. It's just like, wow, that would be a sign that things are heading towards a bad place. So, regardless, go ahead.
Sorry, there was a book series. I think it's called Rust. Do you guys know of this book series that was self-published for a while and then kind of got traction? I read the first one. I think Rust is what it was called. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not Rust. Anyway, it's a sci-fi book series about post-apocalypse where everybody lives underground and they only come out for a while. Dust or Rust or something like that. Anyway, I only read the first book.
Was it like Rust: The Longest War? I remember that.
That might be what it was. I can't remember. Anyway, it was self-published, and then it got a lot of traction, and was picked up by a publisher and became a whole series. Anyway, I bring that up because that book describes basically my interaction with my son right now, which is I constantly think of that book because my son's like, "Dad, I want to go out and play," and I'm like, "No, the air is too damaging to you. The air outside makes it impossible for you to go outside. The actual air will harm you. So no, we have to stay inside, son. It just feels like I'm inside this crazy sci-fi novel.
Do you feel like that's like damaging his development in some way, or like impacting his development, that there's this like threat from something he can't see? Or I'm curious like what your perception of it is.
The psychological aspect I haven't even reckoned with, because I'm too busy worrying about the fact that am I just giving my kid asthma? Like, just the fact that he lives in a place where he inhales this much smoke and toxins, am I giving him physical problems, let alone the psychological ones? I don't know.
Hope everyone stays safe out there. Jeff, if you're tired of the fires, you can always move to Seattle. The only thing we have to fear is very likely a massive earthquake sometime in the next 20 years.
That'll wipe you out with the tidal wave, right?
That's going to completely devastate the infrastructure here. So,
well, I got that going for me too, man. I'm not.
Okay, no, that's true. Anyway, well, what better way to escape from the problems of our real lives than by going to the movies, or in our case, watching movies at home, or both, as is the case with what we're going to be discussing today. So we have been watching a few things. Let's talk about what we've been watching. I had a chance to check out this movie called Tell Me Who I Am. Have you guys heard of this movie, Tell Me Who I Am, on Netflix?
It was like a big award, like film festival thing, I think, when it premiered too, right?
Oh, I don't.
There's a lot of buzz about this, yeah.
So it's essentially a story about twins, Alex and Marcus. They're identical twins, and Alex.
Oh, this stars Paul Rudd, right? I know this show.
No, it's a different one. It's a different show about twins. But it's a documentary, and it's about this twin named Alex who gets in a horrifying motorcycle accident. And after that, he cannot remember anything except for his name and the name of his twin, right? So he basically has reset his life into like the life of a, 6-year-old, in the sense that like he doesn't know like where his house is. He doesn't know who his mom or dad, like what their names are. He doesn't know who any of his friends are. He does know how to like put on clothes and go to the bathroom and stuff like that. So he hasn't like lost all of his capabilities. But it's basically kind of the classical definition of amnesia, where you like lose your memory of everything in your life, except in the case of Alex, his twin. And he then needs to relearn it all. And he trusts his twin, Marcus, to reteach him everything. And this is a extremely fascinating documentary. It's very well made. The entire documentary is essentially just interviews with these two twins. It's just they're in one room. They're being interviewed. And then it's interspersed with kind of reenactments of some of the things that they're talking about. But there's like nothing too fancy, you know. Some of like Errol Morris, one of my favorite filmmakers, some of his documentary reenactments can get pretty showy, in my opinion, like ultra slow motion and really crazy stuff. And in the case of Tell Me Who I Am, not the case. Just very kind of basic reenactments that look like they're like, you know, home videos, like old school, like the opening credits of like Succession or something like that, right? And through the course of the movie, he ends up just learning new things about his life, including some really challenging things. And I'm not going to say any more because I think you should just see the movie. But I will just say I thought it was riveting. I thought it was emotionally powerful. It was cathartic. And it also gets at some really basic questions about humanity. It's obviously a real story, so I don't mean to trivialize it by comparing it to sci-fi, but I think the best of sci-fi asks the question, like, what is it that makes you human? What is it that makes you who you are? And like kind of an intellectual exercise I've always had is, hey, if you were to lose all your memories, would you be able to become a different person? How much do your memories make who you are? This is a question that's been asked by many, many movies that feature amnesia, right? Memento, Bourne Identity. But this is a documentary, and these people actually went through it for real. And so I thought it was great kind of minimalist filmmaking that told a story that is extremely brave, fascinating, and well worth watching. So I would highly recommend it. It's Tell Me Who I Am. It's like 85 minutes. I will say that the subject matter is very troubling. So like trigger warning or whatever kind of warning you would need for something like that. But like, warning about the content in the movie. But Tell Me Who I Am is a movie that I would strongly suggest if you are looking for like an interesting documentary that reflects on the nature of memory and of like of siblinghood. You know, like being a sibling is a very powerful connection. I forget. Devindra, Devindra and Jeff, do you guys have siblings? I forget. I know it's a very basic
Dave,
question.
you know I have a brother. You've met my brother.
That's
on
right.
several occasions.
That's right. That's right. You have a
Wow.
brother.
Dave has
Wow.
is very fascinated about memory, and
Yeah.
it's good.
How about you, Jeff?
I have a younger sister.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I think, like, I have a younger brother, for the record. And I think, like, one of the things I realized growing up and reading about the idea of siblings is, like, how valuable it is to have a sibling because siblings are the only people who know you throughout all your life stages, right? When you are born, your parents are already, 20, 30, 40 years old. They've already like had their first life stages. When you get married, your significant other is meeting you at that life stage. But siblings are the only people who like they're there with you when you're young and then when you're, a teenager growing up and I've grown to really like appreciate my brother as time has gone on. Like when you're young, there's like sibling rivalry and you fight, but like when you get older, you realize like how rare and valuable it is to have a sibling, and that's a kind of relationship that I think this movie, Tell Me Who I Am, really brings to life in a vivid way. So, anyway, that's Tell Me Who I Am. It's on Netflix right now. It is a documentary, and you should check it out.
Yeah, I believe very strongly in having a sibling for my firstborn. My wife and I were both like, we've got to have another one, or else this kid's going to be a real asshole. But it turns out to be an asshole anyway. It turns out having two is very hard, and I was like, we got to have a second one so that they have siblings and they can hang out with each other, and it's like, oh wait, no, two is very hard. Two is very hard.
Well, it's difficult for you, Jeff, but I'm sure both your children will greatly appreciate it. So
they better.
I also had a chance to watch BoJack Horseman season 6, which dropped the first half of its episodes this past week.
Oh,
and
they're pulling a Game of Thrones.
They have split season 6 into two halves. I believe the second half is going to debut in January of 2020. So kind of a bummer in the sense that you can't watch the entire season in one sitting. So it's 7 episodes of 30 minutes long. I've watched all of them at this point. And I really love this show, and I'm not ready for it to be over.
Yeah,
I think
it's so
that
good. It's so good.
I think that I mean, one of the things that's become clear in the last couple of years is having an opinion on movies is exhausting. And what I mean by that is like the discourse is just really exhausting. Like we did a review on Joker a few weeks ago, and we got like a lot of people expressed dissatisfaction with our review because we didn't like it, and it's just like, well, it's just challenging to have a review for a popular movie that like a lot of people disagree with. And the reason I bring Joker up, I guess, is because like something that people brought up is that Joker's depiction of depression is something that really spoke to them, and I don't at all want to minimize that. Like I think that like when we see depictions of things that we go through on screen, it helps people to feel less alone. It helps to illuminate aspects of our condition that we might not have previously thought of. And I guess that's the kind of thing I get out of BoJack Horseman, which is a funny show about a horse, but also its depiction of this misanthropic, alcoholic, depressed horse is something that I find to be like really meaningful. And I guess when I was watching it, at times, like it kind of felt like maybe this is what people who watch Joker got out of that movie. Like. That even though I didn't like Joker very much, like I kind of saw like, okay, like I'm watching this movie about this character, and like it's like teaching me all these valuable life lessons, and whether or not I got that out of the Joker, some people clearly did, and So I just want to acknowledge that, but also say that I really love BoJack Horseman as a show and think it continues to be brilliant. It juxtaposes extremely depressing and sad subject matter alongside like nonstop jokes and brilliant wordplay. And
hey, can we, before we get too far from the first thing you said,
Yeah,
can we
yeah.
can we just talk about that for a second?
Sure,
Sure. I also love BoJack Horseman so much, and I don't want to minimize or take anything away from your review of the season 6, but I think what you said about what people get out of Joker, I think the thing that's unfortunate from my perspective is that doesn't go without saying.
Yeah.
Right? That should be the a priori thing that we all assume. Like
someone's enjoyment of a thing does not diminish yours.
Yes,
right?
Or someone's lack of enjoyment or someone's opinion does not take anything away from the thing that you got out of it. And I got a lot of hate, an inordinate, an unusual amount of hate for my Joker review, to the point where I had to block some people based on attacks about Joker, which it's crazy to me. It's like, okay, man, I didn't like the thing you liked. That's okay. You like it. I'm actually really happy for you that you liked it. I genuinely am. I think the movie is bad, but that's just my opinion. It doesn't affect your opinion. And the fact that we have to sort of explicitly state that, as you did, and you did eloquently, but the fact that we have to is such a bummer.
Well, honestly, doesn't this go like straight to all the auteurs and their thoughts on Marvel and everything too? Like, I feel like all this goes hand in hand where, I don't care what Scorsese thinks about Marvel movies because he's motherfucking Scorsese.
Yeah.
Like, let him have his opinion. He's earned it. He's good. These movies are still making billions of dollars, and nothing is stopping their success just because this man has an opinion.
My favorite thing about that, by the way, not to sidetrack, but my favorite thing about that was a tweet I read that somebody said Martin Scorsese complains that all the Marvel movies are the same during a tour promoting a mobster movie starring Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, which I thought was pretty brilliant.
It's funny. It's funny.
I think one of the canonical things that I like refer back to about this topic, there's so much to dig into in what you said, both of you guys are talking about, and maybe we'll dig into it a little bit, but like one of the canonical pieces I really like about this is this piece by Esther Rosenfeld that was published in May of 2019, where it's entitled "On Letting People Enjoy Things," right? And there's this comic online, you guys have seen this, where it's like this
which
guy
has been bastardized. Yes,
it's this guy pressing this other guy's lips shut and saying, "Shh, let people enjoy things," right? And when you criticize something, like some people tweet this comic at you, and they're like, "Hey, your opinion? Like, shut up! Like, let people enjoy things. It's okay to let people enjoy things." And this piece that we'll link to in the show notes it's all about like, why is it that everyone like is tweeting this comic, like, or Facebook this comment, like, why is that necessary? Here's a quote from the article that I think just illustrates it brilliantly. She says here, "It all comes back to the paradoxical fact that fans of the world's most popular media are intensely insecure in their fandom. Avengers Endgame is on track to make more money than any other film has before, so why do fans brigade negative reviews of Avengers Endgame? When I posted about Endgame on Letterboxd, there was something that came up again and again in furious comments. You made me feel bad for liking this movie. Now, you can judge for yourself whether my review was at all patronizing. I think there's something revealing here, though. If you hold an opinion about a movie, why should reading an opposing one make you feel bad? Unless, of course, you're not secure in your own opinion. Unless you feel there's some truth in those opposing arguments." End quote. So, I mean, it's just this idea that, like, hey, the kind of, like, logical sequence of events, like, hey, this person, I like this movie, but this person didn't like the movie. And if they're right, then that means, like, I'm wrong in some way. Like, that, like, maybe I'm wrong for liking the movie. And, like, rather than confront that possibility, I'm just going to attack the person that's bringing that up, right?
Yeah.
And I just,
it's so weird.
Yeah.
This perception that everything is a zero-sum game is so bizarre to me. I'll tell a quick anecdote from my own life, just in the sense that, I'm doing the dungeon run right now. and it's a live play Dungeons and Dragons show. It's one I'm very proud of. So I have been paying attention to a lot of the comments online, especially on YouTube, and trying to interact and grow the audience because we are kind of a little engine that could. We're a new player on the block and on a service that is in beta and is kind of an upstart, and so we're trying to generate an audience. And some of our episodes have gotten a lot of views, but most of them are we're chugging along. And there was for a while at least one person, I think it was just one person, who kept coming on and just telling everybody, don't watch this, watch Critical Role. And I'm like, this is just a ripoff of Critical Role, which, by the way, big fan of Critical Role. I think they're amazing. But
there may be many, role-playing shows. Yeah.
They also get 1 million viewers an episode. The fact that this person needed to defend, they have no worries about us stealing their audience. There's no universe in which they care that this person needs to come on and be like, it's a zero-sum game. If you watch this, then you're not watching the show I like. And so I got to go on all these videos and tell people to go over to the show I like. It is so weird to me. Like, there's this perception that – in another field that I am passionate about, video games, that has happened for years and years and years, right? If you like the Super Nintendo, then you have to attack the Genesis, because it's a zero-sum game, right?
It's tribalism. It's humanity.
Yeah, it is tribalism, I guess. But neither of those things is going to go away, right? If you like Xbox, you don't have to attack PlayStation. Neither of them are going away. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's baffling is also just like that the nerds have won. You know, Jeff? Like,
I know, and you know what? I thought I wanted that.
Yeah.
I thought I wanted that.
You thought you wanted it.
Yeah, I did. You know, it's like, be careful what you wish for, because my whole life I thought that was the dream, and then the monkey paw gave me my wish, and I saw what happened. You know, we used to say on the Totally Rad Show, when we won our Webby Award for the Totally Rad Show, the Webby famously, your acceptance speech has to be 5 words. Ours was nerd is the new cool. And we sold T-shirts that said nerd is the new cool. And we thought it was this like rallying cry, like, yeah, we finally did it. Nerd is becoming cool, right?
This really is your fault, Jeff.
Well, yeah, maybe.
This is all your fault.
I'll accept full responsibility. Yeah. And then it happened. Nerd became the new cool. We like you said, we won. And we became the thing we hated. Yeah. We became the bullies. Because when I was a kid, being a nerd was the antithesis of being a bully. The bullies bullied the nerds. And the nerds took it and felt bad and had big hearts and big minds and
I think it's worth mentioning there has always been a certain subset of geekdom and nerdery and who, because they were the underdogs, also took that knowledge and wielded it as like a bullying weapon too. So like that's also why a lot of like sub genres, like things, it's hard for a lot of people to get into comics because comic stores weren't always friendly. It's hard for people to get into role-playing games because the groups they've interacted with, weren't great. So it's kind of like, I feel like it was always there. It's just kind of bubbled to the top. Yeah.
But
maybe I don't know if it was always there, but maybe
there's something there. Yeah.
I think what I just find fascinating is probably the most charitable way I can put it, is that like you have one company who is making movies that are taking 40% of total domestic box office in the United States. It is a culturally dominant force. Talking about Marvel, right? And like,
are they talking about Disney?
Disney, Marvel, like they're not only setting the terms from a business perspective, they're setting the terms from a cultural perspective, right? Like they are, irrevocably, inexorably, whatever, shaping the way that we are consuming our media, the types of stories we can consume, I think. They can take a few critics going at them, like they can take people not liking Marvel movies. Like it's not that big of a deal. And
this is why I'm so. I mean, not to open a giant can of worms,
Ah.
but this is why I have such worry mixed with my excitement, my genuine excitement, but I have genuine worry about this Star Wars movie that we're getting because I felt like what Ryan did was he did a very bold thing and said, I'm bursting this thing open, this closed garden, and I'm bursting it open and I'm making it for everybody, and literally putting in the text that there's no chosen ones, that everybody can be a Jedi. This is all for everyone. Burn the past. Let's make a new thing here. And I think JJ is going to undo all of it. I think it's going to retcon all of that progress out of what I see as progress. And I know a lot of people disagree vehemently, but I think it's going to be retconned out by this 9th movie. And it makes me sad. It makes me sad because I think what you're talking about, Dave, is this opportunity that Disney Corporation has with their cultural footprint to actually influence the world in really positive ways. And I think Rian Johnson accepted that responsibility and really took it on his shoulders and created a compelling piece of art from my perspective, one that was really thrilling and fun, but also spoke in a way that those movies have never spoken. And they suffered the wrath for it and could have just endured that, as you say, because Disney can handle it. But I feel like what's happening, I don't know because I haven't seen the movie yet, but I suspect what's going to happen is that JJ is going to be like, eraser. I
am hearing a lot of like nerd fear about this, and I have absolutely no idea where it's coming from. So let's watch the movie and let's see how it goes. I will say like the cool independent streak of Last Jedi felt purely Rian Johnson. I wouldn't put like any responsibility of Disney to like promote a more inclusive media. I think a lot of that was his story and they were just kind of cool with letting it go. But yeah, we don't know until we know the full background of everything. Just chill, geeks. We're gonna see this movie soon, and then you can yell at J.J. Abrams. I'm definitely of the opinion where it's like we have so much to worry about in this world. We can like just delay the stress of wondering if J.J. Abrams retconned Rey's parentage from The Last Jedi. You have more things to worry about. Okay.
Yes, but you underestimate my bandwidth of worry.
Well, Jeff,
that can be filled up with something else. Don't worry. Jeff.
First of all, I'm really impressed that we've managed to touch upon Joker, Martin Scorsese, and Marvel, and The Last Jedi in the last 10 minutes. Definitely,
it's like sweeps week here on these
It's basically anger as many people as humanly possible. So, like, nicely done, mission accomplished there.
It's like which bingo. This is break the internet bingo.
Brings us to Hunt a Killer, our sponsor for this episode. Hunt a Killer. You want me to go into it?
Yeah, go ahead. Take it away, Jeff.
Yeah. Hunt a Killer is the sponsor of this episode, and oh my goodness, is it cool. You know that if you know anything about me, you know I love tabletop stuff. I love physical things. Yes, digital video games are cool. Being on your phone is awesome. But actually being able to sit down with your friends around a table and solve a mystery, work on a mystery, come up with clues, physical stuff that you get to pull out case files and read stuff and have, physical clues that you're looking at in 300, in 3D and physical objects. That is so fun. And that is what Hunt a Killer provides. It is actually a subscription service with a continuing narrative. So as you solve a case, it leads you to the next case, and it's building a larger meta narrative. So it leads you on over the course of several months, and it makes you be able to look forward to the next thing you're going to find out. It's so cool. My wife and I played this together. It's a great thing for couples. When you unbox the thing, that moment alone is so rad because you're pulling out like what's in this box. It's got a list of all the cool things in the box. It's got case files. It's got, physical objects. It's got clues, and you're like, I don't even know how this connects to anything. And then you dig in and you start putting stuff together, figuring out the puzzles. It's so much fun. And they have thousands of online community members, 2,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. And Fast Company named him one of the most innovative entertainment companies of 2019. Plus, this is one of the things I like most about Hunt a Killer. Part of the proceeds for every box go to the Cold Case Foundation to help fund cold case investigations. So it's like you're kind of chipping in to actually solve real cases in in an oblique but very effective way. Very, very cool. You guys got to check this out. And right now, just for our listeners, you can go to huntakiller.com/filmcast for 20% off your first box. Hurry to take advantage of this offer and embrace your inner detective. That's huntakiller.com/filmcast for 20% off your first box. huntakiller.com/filmcast. FILMCAST. It's not just about catching the murderer. It's about the friends you make along the way.
Thanks to Hunt a Killer for sponsoring us this week. So, Jeff, as I was saying, BoJack Horseman season 6. But the one thing I wanted to close in on was just that, like, the point I was making was not. I definitely wasn't trying to bring up The Last Jedi in any way. I was just trying to say, I think Mark Maron said something like this a few months ago, that, like, basically, hey, you've already won. The people who, like, support Marvel movies, who love Marvel movies, or Joker movies, which, by the way, like, Joker is, I think, the most successful or profitable R-rated film of all time, right? It is as profitable as Avengers Endgame was, just because the budget was so low. You've already won. Like, the movies are wildly successful. Millions of people watch them. Like, whatever you want to get out of these movies, like, and getting them in front of people, it's already succeeded. One thing that you could do is just allow people to say negative things about them, if they don't like them. Consider that maybe, like, in complete and utter dominance, it might be valuable to hear a dissenting opinion on them. So,
but don't you dare say anything bad about BoJack Horseman, right, Dave?
Yep, that's correct. If you say anything negative about BoJack Horseman, how dare you?
You will be trampled to death. Yeah.
No. BoJack Horseman season 6, brilliant, and continues many of the things that previous seasons did well. Like, for instance, like, long-running jokes that run many episodes, like a visual gag that's introduced in the first episode that then, like, will pay off, like, 6 episodes later. That's there a lot this season. I will say this, previous seasons have been pretty emotionally devastating. Like, there's been some episodes that have just been, like, super dark, right? Jeff, I assume you've seen, like, most of the seasons. Yeah, they've been just, like, ultra dark,
heart-ripping. Like, yes.
This is, like,
definitely
one of the darkest things I've ever seen. Like, regardless of whether it's animated or not. And I will say that season 6 is not like that. Like, it's not as challenging as previous seasons, but it's BoJack Horseman.
First half. It's only first half.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There's still, like, I'm guessing, 5 or 6 episodes to go. So, but I think BoJack Horseman season 6 continues to be brilliant, and I would recommend this show to anyone who might be intrigued by its premise. So that's BoJack
better
Horseman
than Joker.
6.
Dave Chen, better than Joker.
That's correct. All right, Devindra, what have you been watching?
I saw Dolomite Is My Name, the new Netflix movie starring Eddie Murphy. And folks, Eddie Murphy's back. This movie is so good. Wow. So good. This movie feels like, I haven't seen Eddie Murphy in a movie this good, I think, in decades. What was the last, like, truly great Eddie Murphy movie? And maybe his, like, Donkey, maybe his Shrek. Like, most memorable, role recently, but truly great, truly, amazing art. I feel like this movie is it. It's a biopic of Rudy Ray Moore, the kind of underground comedian who really came up with his dirty comedy and kind of turned that, basically through sheer force of will, turned that into a blaxploitation movie career as well. It's a movie entirely about this guy. Eddie Murphy plays him. It's really interesting to see Eddie Murphy playing a guy who is kind of down and out and, talented, but not quite making it, because I feel like I can't. It's sort of like seeing Will Smith play somebody who just can't catch a break in life. Like, I just can't believe it anymore because he's Eddie Murphy, right? I feel like he's perfectly believable in this film, and he is hilarious. It's well written. It's well directed. It's directed by Craig Brewer, who did Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan. I believe he co-created Empire as well. This guy knows his music and like creation stuff. Like Hustle and Flow is one of the best like movies about making music and about making art that's come out recently. And this entire movie is basically about the struggle of making an independent movie, because that's what the first Dolomite movie was. They had no idea what they were doing. They didn't know how to like run cameras or anything. So a lot of this is Rudy Ray Moore, taking the money he earns from his comedy records, kind of investing everything to create this movie because he feels like he needs to be in the movies, and the story of that. It's amazing. It's great. Eddie Murphy's great. The entire cast is fantastic. But I will have to say, special shout out to Wesley Snipes, who is in this movie and is hilarious. Hilarious in the way that we've forgotten Wesley Snipes could be since the 90s. Like, we remember him as Blade. We remember him as like, the grizzled action hero in a lot of 90s movies. I think we've forgotten Eddie,
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. He can be hilarious. So this movie really, he plays an actor. His name I forget right now, but he was like the only notable name that Rudy Ray Moore was able to get to work on Dolomite, and that actor also ended up directing the movie. And he just plays this guy as like a very foppish, very like hilarious, artsy guy. It's kind of hard to explain, but every single word that comes out of Wesley Snipes' mouth in this movie, I think is gold. So go check it out. Fair warning, it is a dirty ass movie. This is a movie about blue comedy. So don't watch with your kids around. Don't watch, maybe don't watch with your folks if you're not cool with that sort of thing. It is super blue, but I think it's hilarious. It's amazing. I'm so heartened that this creative crew, so Craig Brewer and Eddie Murphy, are going to be working on Coming to America 2 together. That gives me a lot of hope for that movie, because I love Coming to America. I did not want to see a sequel, but now that these folks are involved, and Wesley Snipes apparently, because Eddie Murphy had such a great time making this movie with Wesley Snipes and this crew, he's basically just trying to bring everybody back for Coming to America. So looking forward to that as well. But go check this out.
Let's just take a second and step through the Eddie Murphy oeuvre.
Yeah.
Since Shrek. Okay.
Oh,
Shrek is 2001. Dr. Dolittle 2.
Yeah.
Showtime. The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Daddy Daycare. The Haunted Mansion. Another Shrek movie. And then Dreamgirls.
Dreamgirls is good. Yeah.
Norbit. Meet Dave. Imagine That. Tower Heist, which I actually really liked. 1,000 Words. I don't even know what that is. Maybe that's Mr. Church. And now Dolomite Is My Name.
Well, honestly, that isn't as bad as I thought it was. I actually thought there was like some decent movies in there. So,
well, I don't know about decent, but I think a lot of those made money. I think that's the key for Eddie Murphy's career. But
like Dreamgirls, he was good in Dreamgirls.
Dreamgirls is good, but that was also like a rarity in the last like 20 years, right? This movie feels like a creative reboot for him. This feels like Eddie Murphy coming out saying, "Listen, you think I'm just I'm kind of a sellout. You think I don't know how to be good anymore or how to make good things anymore." This feels like a very big stamp that he's trying to say that he's back, baby.
Yeah, I mean, we got Coming to America with the 2 as the 2, and Beverly Hills Cop 4, both on the docket, and then Triplets, which I assume is going to be Eddie Murphy in lots of makeup. So he's getting on that horse.
It's the sequel to Twins, and we're not going to explain how that happens. Yeah.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready for a Murphisance.
Yeah,
I am.
Oh,
I am.
Need it.
That's rough, man. You can't. A wise man once told me you can't just assance everything, Jeff.
I know. I learned it by watching you, Dave.
All right, so that's Dolomite Is My Name, and it is available right now on Netflix. I've heard it's great, so I'm actually looking forward to checking it out.
Yeah.
Devindra, what else have you been watching?
I've also seen a little thing called Watchmen on HBO, and I have been waiting. Like, I've been anticipating this thing for so long. I remember I got you guys on board with Leftovers, but I was there. I was there at the beginning with Leftovers. I was really like feeling what Lindelof was doing, and I really wanted to believe in this guy post Lost and everything, because I think he's a very talented writer and showrunner. Certainly making a super long, super dense mythological show like Lost can kind of destroy you. So of course that didn't end so well. We'll say about Watchmen, I love the show. I love every single thing about the show. This show opens with it's not a huge spoiler to say it, but the very first scene of this show recreates the Tulsa riots, and I feel like that's something, it's something that I think more people are learning about now, and certainly after Ta-Nehisi Coates mentioned it in his reparations piece. But it's a major thing that happened to a community that was called Black Wall Street in Tulsa, where racists and eventually, I guess, the government as well, basically obliterated this town and killed a lot of people along the way. And this show opens with that. It's insane to me. This show is basically doing what Watchmen did as a comic in the 80s, sort of like taking the superhero mythologies, maybe dressing them down a little and making them more realistic, and using them as a statement against like capitalist society and like the greed of the 80s and everything. This movie is doing that for racism. This movie, like this show is swinging big, and it really feels like a show about like the one thing superheroes can't fix. There's no big evil, Ultron or Thanos for racism. That is just society. That's just like within the fabric of humanity and civilization. And this show is confronting that completely. And I find that astounding. They're just doing some great work here. Regina King stars in the show as like a former cop who's now a vigilante superhero who's also working with the cops. So I guess technically not a vigilante, but she has a costume. She has powers. She has the ability to kick ass because she's Regina King, and I totally believe that. And the show it is so bold. It feels bold in the way that Leftovers was, where it really doesn't ground you. It doesn't give you a lot of context. It expects that you have read Watchmen. It expects that you have remembered certain aspects of Watchmen because it actively like invokes the history of it. It is literally a sequel to the comic. So there's a lot of stuff happening where I feel like even seasoned Watchmen people will have to like take a step back and wonder why this is happening and try to figure it out. And to me, this is the sort of media I love. I love trying to figure things out like this more than the like overt puzzle nature of like something like freaking what's the cowboy show? Westworld. To me, this is far more satisfying because the world is rich. The world feels lived in, and it's just presented in a way where you kind of have to figure it out. I'm totally cool with that. I love everything about it. It looks amazing. Can't wait to see where it goes. And also shout out to Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's score for this thing, which every time the score comes up, guys, I feel like I'm just getting up and like clapping in my living room because it kicks so much ass. Everything about the show. It rules. It rules. This show rules. I cannot stop gushing over it. So right. Please. Well,
it's a solid score. And I actually agree with everything you said except one thing, which is you said that you must read Watchmen, like the comics, or you must be familiar with Watchmen in order to enjoy the show. And I don't know if the answer to that question is yes yet. Because what's fascinating about the show is that the mythology of Watchmen, Alan Moore's Watchmen, the graphic novel,
although Alan Moore's name is nowhere to be found
correct,
on the show.
Not attached to the show at all, because he does not bless any derivative works from Watchmen. And
Dave Gibbons' Watchmen, as far as the show's concerned.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fascinating thing too. Is like, I always thought like, it's so weird that Damon Lindelof, who's like a creator himself, or Zack Snyder, who's a creator himself, would like make a show. Like, can you imagine making a thing based on a book where you do not have the creator's blessing, not only not have the creator's blessing, he explicitly does not want you to do what you're doing. I think that would be very difficult. But something that Damon Lindelof brought up in his letter to fans at the beginning of this process was like, do not the other people who work on Watchmen also have a stake in like allowing derivative works to be created, of which Dave Gibbons is one of them, right?
He's the only other one of them, really.
I think there was, yeah. I mean,
I guess he's a letterer.
Yeah, the letterer. That's right. Yeah. So, but he's the main other one, correct? His art really helped to bring the world to life.
Sure.
But what's fascinating to me, Devendra, is that like when you're watching a show like Westworld or any show that has a deep mythology, the show will bring up like
Yeah.
things that are mysteries. Like why does that guy act like that, or why is he in that situation and
Why are the
acting
cops
strange?
wearing masks?
Right? Why are the cops
There's a
wearing
lot of things.
et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things like that. And in a normal show, you just trust that the showrunner or the people behind the show are going to explain that to you during the course of the show, right? You're just like, oh, they're introducing a bunch of mysteries, and they're going to explain them. In Watchmen, those mysteries are things that are answered in the comic book. Now, they may not be explained in the show. I actually, my hunch is that they will be explained in the show, but they may not be. But I think they will be. In which case, it's fascinating that they're using the book as kind of like this thing that is like a background setting for these mysteries. But if you've read the book, then you already know the answer to some of the mysteries, right?
Well, some of them, but that's why. Like, I was watching this with my wife, who has no grounding. Like, we saw the Watchmen movie together, but she has no recollection of that thing. But she was completely lost. I've talked to a lot of people who have no grounding in Watchmen at all, and they're just like, what the hell is happening?
I've had people
like that's my experience as well as watching with my wife, and I mean, I literally walked to my bookshelf and picked up Watchmen and brought it over to her. And it was like the last shot of the first episode is the blood drop. And I'm like, well, it's really important that you know what that is.
I don't
that's less important.
Yeah, that's less important in my opinion.
They're like nice, I think reflections of the imagery from the comic, but the actual core of it, like, why are squids falling from the sky?
Yeah, but
it turns out.
So as Devinder points out, there are homages to the book and the film, right? So like, I think those are less important for you to know, like the blood drop, like you're saying, that's not super important. And I actually think stuff like the squid that happens in the first episode will be explained in the course of the show. So like, I actually don't.
I really don't. I really don't think it will.
They never explained the like core conceit of Leftovers. Remember, like that. That is still an open
I know,
mystery.
but yeah, that's what's great is like that show still worked without that.
Yeah,
and I think this show can work without some of the things explained. And if you've read the book, it can work. That being said, I mean, I acknowledge that your lived experience is real with the people that you know who are completely lost. I will say that when I tweeted about Watchmen, like several people responded and said, like, I had never read the book, never watched the movie, was still able to greatly enjoy the first episode.
Right. But your audience is people who like, are
don't know
difficult media.
Well, also my wife watched it, and she's never watched the movie or read the book, and she was able to enjoy it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a show that makes you work. You know, it's not like a show that like you can just sit back and relax and take in like an episode of Law and Order SVU. So,
and I think that's to Devinder's point of it being bold, is that I think it is fine with you not understanding. Like the point of that squid scene isn't to reference the movie, which is not even the book, the movie, but also it is to say this is a strange place where weird shit happens. And that surface level interpretation is enough for the show in that moment. Yes, there's a layer that you can glean that is deeper than that if you have that backstory. But the show is okay with you going, it's just weird.
Yeah, just
I'm in a weird place.
Accept the mystery, and let's move on. Let's move on with the story. I can also tie Watchmen back to our Decatur meetup, by the way, because most of the downtown scenes in downtown Tulsa are downtown Decatur, and they didn't even change any of the store names too. So it is hilarious to see like there's certain things that end up happening that really center on the town square, and you'll see stores like the Iberian Pig, which is a tapas restaurant down there. So that's fun. Like everything's happening in Atlanta now. It's hilarious.
Jeff Kanata, I don't think I have a good sense of like what your opinion is on this movie yet. What did you think of, or on this show? Like you saw the first episode. What do you think of it? Are you excited?
I've only seen the first. There have been two that have aired as of our discussion. I've only seen the first. I'm anxious to see the second. It's a tough watch. It is a show that makes you. It's not a feel-good hit of the summer. It is going to be. It's one that puts you through the ringer. In the first 10 minutes of the show, I see a boy about the age of my son running through war-torn streets, clutching his dad, and I almost turned it off at that point, just because I have a hard time with that kind of imagery at this point. And it got worse from there. I mean, that is the least disturbing thing that the show delves into in that first sequence. So it is a difficult show that is dealing with difficult issues, but I am 100% on Devinder's team with regard to how bold it is. The fact that this is like mainstream HBO entertainment in its prime Sunday night slot, and it is doing what it's doing is extraordinary. It's extraordinary.
I feel like HBO has understood like a big part of their gamble is just like, well, we don't know what Game of Thrones is, but people seem to be buying it, right? So they're betting more on weird things, and they've always kind of had room for this. So I think that's fun to see, and it's nice to see that it's not just like Netflix and the streaming services who are like betting on big original content. Well, I guess this is still original. Like the idea of doing a straight up sequel to Watchmen and not just like recreating it painstakingly. I think that's a pretty original idea, even though it's using like the building blocks of the book. Second episode, by the way, has a wonderfully harsh smackdown against Zack Snyder. It is hilarious. It is hilarious. Be sure to like cackle when you see it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those shows where I'm like, man, I don't know, putting me through that ringer. I mean, Leftovers was kind of like that too. It was it was a hard show.
So I have seen more episodes. I will be writing something about it. It changes a little too. Like it is, I think, just like Leftovers, it is a very like. It's a very emotional grounding where they start, and then the show kind of opens up in a way that is fun and unexpected and still kicks plenty of ass because I need that score. I just need that score when I'm just walking around life because to me, it sounds like the best thing, the best score Reznor and Atticus Finch or Atticus Ross have done.
I think it is crazy how much it expects you to be familiar with Watchmen. Yes. I don't agree with you, Dave, that zero knowledge of Watchmen as a thing will feel good. I mean, I know there.
I guess I'm saying I don't know. Show. I don't know how it's going to feel. Like you've seen the X-Files. We've seen tons of shows where like there's like 15 mysteries introduced in the first episode, and it's extremely likely. Like in episode 2 alone, they explain something that happened in Watchmen. Like it's just like
I don't know, man. I feel like. There's a pan across a newspaper that says, vet killed or something. And it's like, I feel like that's all we're going to get about Adrian Vett. I feel like that's the show going, we're not dealing with this character at all. So just disavow yourself of that. And then there's like just one shot of Dr. Manhattan on Mars.
Yeah, from the farthest angle.
I mean, Jeff, literally both of those things I think you are dead wrong about. So like, I don't know how to say more without spoiling things, but like, I just think you're completely wrong.
You know for a fact that I'm dead wrong?
Yes, at least one of them.
Oh.
Yeah.
The first episode at least answered one of your questions.
The second episode answers one of the questions, yes.
Yeah. And President Robert Redford. Little things like that. Like why is there a President Robert Redford? What's going on? But the show just like says like it just like throws these things out there, expects you to like deal with it, and I love that the difficulty of that. It's just so rewarding to watch.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Watchmen. It's on HBO. I think it's brilliant, and I think that I would actually argue like if you are extremely familiar with the books, it actually doesn't even help that much. Like it helps a little bit because you have some sense of like some of the events that have happened.
Yeah.
But like it's such a new perspective. It's trying to say so many different things than what the book was trying to say. In my opinion,
actually might be the kind of thing that, I mean, from my experience watching the first episode, it was almost distracting of me trying to put things together and understand like why is he driving Night Owl's ship, and like the things that I'm recognizing that my wife isn't are bothering me rather than pulling me out. So maybe there is some truth to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of the things that's great. I actually went back and reread the graphic novel and rewatched the Zack Snyder movie to kind of prepare.
You went too far, but okay.
And we should be really clear that like in the universe of the Watchmen HBO show, like the Zack Snyder movie didn't happen. Like it is squarely based off of the book. It's not the ending of the novel and the movie are very different, and the one that happens in the novel is the one that this show assumes is canon. So like,
but there is a show within a show in this. This
show.
I
agree. I agree. I know.
And
what you're
saying.
It refers to Zack Snyder's work.
Nerds like us are looking at this and be like, "Oh, that's just like Zack Snyder's number right there." It's hilarious,
but it's not part of the storyline of the movie. So, or it's not relevant to like the main plot of the movie. So, I think that one thing that I love about the original Watchmen, right, is like I've been hearing about for years how it's like a deconstruction of comic book superheroes, right? And like, and it wasn't until recent. I know this is like obvious. Like, okay, yes, whoever understood this a long time ago, you're very smart. I'm not trying to say I'm a genius or anything like that, but like, I think like in my most recent reading is when it fully dawned on me that like, what's great about Watchmen is it shows you different iterations of what the characters that we love would be, right? Like, what would it be like if a normal dude dressed up in a suit and tried to fight crime? What would it be if an extremely emotionally disturbed dude in a suit dressed up and tried to fight crime? Like Rorschach,
what if a god appeared? Why would they care about us? You know,
right?
Things like that.
Rorschach was Alan Moore's attempt at creating a realistic version of Batman. You know, he's like, if Batman was real, and like there's actually a dude that was like really hated everything and like and wanted to exterminate crime, what would that actually be like? He would probably not take showers. You know, he would probably murder people because he'd be so like dwelling on the evil of the city.
Nobody would want to hang out with him.
Nobody would want to hang out with him. He'd be like a terrible person, and that's kind of what Rorschach is. And then what if there actually was a Superman? What if there actually was a super? Like, what would the geopolitical implications of that be? Right?
Yeah.
And that's Dr. Manhattan. And it's like, wow, like you get the whole spectrum of what that would be in that book.
Thing that that is the craziest thing about that, in a time when like Watchmen debuts beside The Boys, which is doing basically the same, you know, postmodern view. The thing that's crazy to think about is that no one was doing that when Alan Moore did it.
Right.
You know, no one was doing it.
Yeah.
It was like that, and Dark Knight Returns changed comics. Nobody was thinking along those terms or showing things in that kind of stark reality. It's hard to even put our minds there now because that is just part of the fabric of those stories. People have done stuff like that and done analogs of these characters, and he wanted to do them with DC's actual characters. He only made Watchmen because he had to. He wanted to do it with Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, you know. And can you imagine what that would have been like? But you know, ultimately that limitation created something even greater because you got to invent all these wonderful characters and this imagery that is so interesting, the comedian and Rorschach and all these characters. But man, he was really, you know, he is an eccentric and a very odd dude, but a genius.
You're referring to Alan Moore,
Yes.
And completely agreed. But what's amazing about the show is like, I feel like it's very little concerned with any of that stuff we just talked about. You know, like it is charting completely new territory in terms of like what kind of like social commentary it can extract from this world. Yes, there's stuff in there about like vigilantism and stuff, but it's like really, it's, you know, Devindra, you're talking about like how like basic societal inequalities and racism and how that's woven into the fabric of humanity. Like that's really what the show is about. It's and yes, racism was a component of Alan Moore's Watchmen, but it is certainly brought to the forefront in this movie. And of course, the Regina King, you're talking about her performance. She is the protagonist of the show. Like she is the main character, and all the stuff revolves around what she's going through. And I think it's going to be really fascinating as the season goes on. So I think it's really bold. It's original, even though it's derivative, and it's worth watching, in my opinion.
Well, is derivative the word to use? It is not.
It's literally derived from another work, but I mean, you know,
the way we use derivative is
you think it's a negative.
It's not pejorative. It's a pejorative.
It's not pejorative. I'm just saying it's.
But this is a good way. This is a good way to derive things, right? Like, using the past to like build a new story that's completely fresh, and I think even more, like you're saying, Jeff, like even more confusing to people who know what happened before, because it's really hard to parse a lot of these things together.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that are derived from other things, cat litter.
Wow.
You know, cat litter derives from cats, right? Like cats eat things, they produce cat litter.
Speaking of pooping on the past.
Let's reset this, because that's not how cat litter works.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Good call. Devindra, why don't you tell us about cat litter and our newest sponsor, Pretty Litter?
Sure. I'm going to tell you guys how much I love my cats. I've had them both, Coco and Shoshana. Shoshana named after Inglourious Bastards, of course. I've had them for about 10 years. I love them. They're amazing. They were my companions when I moved to New York. What I don't love is the hard work involved with cat litter. Lugging 20-pound bags and boxes from the store, dealing with the mess of it. It's not great. So I want to tell you guys about Pretty Litter, which is basically kitty litter 2.0. So it's litter that you buy online. It's shipped to your door in a small lightweight bag, and it lasts a month because it's actually gel based. So you only have to scoop out the poop. The urine is fine. It's just there. You don't have to run to the store. You don't have to deal with heavy bags or anything like that. It also has next level odor protection. Those super absorbent crystals trap and conceal odor and moisture. So you really don't have to worry much about it. I think what's really cool is that Pretty Litter can also monitor your cat's health. So when your cat pees, the litter itself changes color to detect medical issues. So yeah, if it turns a specific color, you can be like, oh, this could be a kidney problem, or this could be a UTI, which is something cats get a lot. So all that stuff is great. I think cats are mysteries, and I have to take them to the vet a lot because it's really hard to tell what's wrong with them. So it's kind of amazing that there's cat litter now that can tell you what's up with your cat. So do what I did and make the switch to Pretty Litter today by visiting prettylitter.com and use promo code FILMCAST for 20% off your first order. That's prettylitter.com, promo code FILMCAST for 20% off. prettylitter.com, promo code FILMCAST.
Thanks to Pretty Litter for sponsoring us on today's episode of the Slash Filmcast. Now, before we get to our review of Parasite today, I do want to just follow up with something that happened a few weeks ago on the podcast. We got our first Best Man request on the podcast, if you'll remember, right? Somebody donated money, and as part of their donation, they wanted us to ask someone else to be their best man. Specifically, a listener named Brandon donated and asked that Travis be his best man. And Travis actually has a response for us. He wrote in, quote, I am the Travis that Brandon Lane, best man, proposed to a couple weeks ago. Hearing Brandon's name mentioned on the podcast was very cool. At first I thought, hey, maybe it's another Brandon Lane, but as the details emerged, I became more and more excited that it was in fact him. Then the bomb dropped. It was one of the most thoughtful and meaningful things anyone has ever done for me. Brandon and I both grew up without a brother, so we were both each other's brothers. We share the same love of movies, of you guys, and the same sense of humor. So to Brandon, I say this, blow it out your ass, you're dead to me. Actually, though, I never thought I would be anyone's best man. To be your best man is nothing short of the highest honor, and I can't wait to be there for you. You're my best friend, and I love you. Hopefully you see this email and can read it back to him. I genuinely freaked out when I heard the podcast while sitting at my desk. There were tears and cheers, and I immediately called my wife and parents and had them listen to the episode for that part. It's one of the best parts of my week listening to you guys. Thanks so much for what you do. So
That's awesome.
That is the conclusion of the Travis and Brandon Best Man saga.
I love how we have these ongoing sagas. This is great. Let's keep it going.
It's so fantastic. Although I have to say, the little twist at the end, I called my wife, was Brandon Travis's best man?
I don't know why you're asking that question on the air, because if that wasn't the case, then you're just sowing more dissent in their relationship.
I'm just saying, it's maybe the plot twist that none of us saw coming.
This is like that moment in like Columbo when he's like, but wait, like, why did you have the shoelaces? You know, like,
yeah, there's a moment where Brandon's like, wait, Travis, you're married? I wasn't there.
Wow, Jeff,
he slipped up right there at the end. It was so great. He asked me, and I immediately asked my wife, not knowing that was his greatest mistake.
Well, Jeff, way to take what was like extremely lovely moment and adding some, some. I don't even know what that is.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, we also got a donation from Russell Carrington from Australia, who writes in, longtime listener from Australia, thank you for always entertaining me on my way to university or college. Thanks so much for all your donations. You can always donate to us by going to paypal.me/filmcast. That's paypal.me/the word filmcast. It does cost money to put on the show, to go see movies, and all the money you go does help us defray those costs. So again, paypal.me/filmcast. You can also donate at the rate of $2 per month by going to /film.com, use the /filmcast tab, and the PayPal link's on the side of the page. We never want you to donate if it in any way causes you hardship. But if you want to throw some bucks our way, that would be great. And if you want to support us for free, for no money whatsoever, just go to Apple Podcasts, leave a star rating. It takes a few seconds. We could really use them. It helps us stand out amongst the crowd of film podcasts. Let's get to our review of Parasite. So, Jeff, just to be clear, like, I mean, I don't know if you want me to explain, what was like, what of your questions is answered in.
I'm going to watch the second episode. I'll watch the second episode.
Okay.
No, it's in the first episode too. But
and also, like, by the way, like, even at the end of the first episode, it's pretty clear to me that Jeremy Irons' character is Veidt.
Well, I thought maybe, but I wasn't sure.
Why are we spending so much time with this naked rich dude? You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
When they give him the birthday cake, when they give him the birthday cake, the colors of the cake are like Veidt's colors. You know?
Yeah. I guess I'm pretty stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you said it.
We just had to put it on the air to record it.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I don't think you're
I
stupid.
want to cut all that out where I said that.
But it's cool. It's cool. There's many. I think it's a completely legitimate point that like the show is not giving you enough to go off of. So, all right, here we go. That was from the trailer for Parasite, the newest film by writer-director Bong Joon-ho. I'm going to read the plot summary from IMDb. All unemployed, Kai-taek's family takes particular interest in the wealthy and glamorous parks for their livelihood until they get entangled in an unexpected incident. Very, very vague there, and I think appropriately so. So, Parasite. I mean, this is a movie that I've heard is one of the best films of the decade. I heard it's one of the best films of 2019. The hype was almost unbelievable in terms of like how high my expectations were going into this movie. As you all know, it's been a particularly rough movie year for me personally. Just like my own opinions on movies, I haven't liked most of the movies.
Imagine us having to listen to you.
I know, it sounds horrendous. But yeah, I literally have not liked most of the movies I've seen this year. And so, and I've heard like people talk up like Once Upon a Time, amazing movie. Watched it, brutally disappointed. So, Parasite, a movie that I have like pretty sky high expectations for. And Devindra, I'm assuming after you saw like 33 sold out shows for. On the schedule, you're like, hey, this has got to be probably pretty good.
It was all everybody was talking about in New York. It was maddening that you didn't get to see it that first weekend.
So given all those expectations, did you feel like the final film lived up to them?
I will say, yeah. Like I was pretty blown away by this movie. It is this is Bong Joon-ho doing like straight up social commentary about modern life in Korea. It kind of reminded me a lot of Burning in that sense too. This is a movie that's distinctly about class struggles and what people who are at the bottom will do to get up top. But it's reflexive in a way. Like I feel like there aren't really many good guys and bad guys in this movie. Just bad situations that get worse and worse. It feels like a Coen brother movie basically in Korea, where like these small time hustlers who will just kind of do whatever it takes to survive because life is hard in a capitalist society. They see this opportunity, they jump on it, and shit gets out of hand really fast. It's a beautiful film. I think the way it's shot, the way everything is framed, this family lives in a basement, lives below everybody at street level, basically. And the symbolism of that versus the very nice, rich house on a hill that they end up, that is a big focus of this movie. I think, it's very blunt, but I think the way that imagery kind of works out in the film, it has a lot of weight to it as well. It's nice to see Bong Joon-ho going back to something that's maybe a little more subtle as well, compared to like freaking Snowpiercer and compared to Okja, which I love Snowpiercer. I really liked Okja, but it definitely felt like he was leaning on like this very like high energy absurdist type of filmmaking after a while. This is a much more subdued movie that has crazy elements and crazy points. And I like that kind of Bong Joon-ho, honestly. Like I don't need him to swing crazily all the time. I like to see him more reserved and really trying to say something here, and I feel like this movie definitely does that.
Jeffrey Kanata, your thoughts on Parasite?
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts about Parasite are best summed up in the form of a limerick. A movie with many styles in it, from comedy to horror, it pivots. Romance and a con and a family drama, all great, but for those final 5 minutes.
Whoa!
Wow. Family
Interesting.
drama.
Well, we will have to
Family
talk.
drama.
We'll have to talk about the final 5 minutes and spoilers, but tell us about
Yeah.
what you loved until those final 5 minutes.
Well, I did love this movie. It is a ride, man.
Yeah.
It is a ride. This is not a short movie, but it is. I had no idea where I was going.
The roller coaster of emotions. Yeah.
It is crazy, bouncing between tones, unexpected things happening, genuinely touching, very subtle character stuff with way broad, crazy physical stuff and goofy stuff and terrifying thrillery stuff. The ability to just bounce around like that and not have it feel like a complete a mess is quite something. I'm not somebody that loved Snowpiercer. I thought it had really great ideas, but it just didn't work for me completely. And I really disliked Oakjaw.
Yeah.
But man, Parasite feels like the movie that he has been capable of, or at least for me, it really sold me on the talent of this guy. And there's nothing else like it.
Well,
There's
it's more like The Host and more like Mother, which are even subtler movies that he made before, Snowpiercer and Okja.
Yeah, I've not seen those, and maybe I should go back and see them.
You will love The Host. I can guarantee that. That movie will destroy you. Yeah.
Well, maybe I should go back and see that. But I sort of, became aware of him with Snowpiercer, and this one feels like, okay, I'm on board. This guy is a very talented filmmaker with some really interesting things to say. I do think the ball is a little bit fumbled at the very, 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 very end of this movie. And it's unfortunate. Like, if you literally just truncated the last 5 minutes of this movie, I think it would be a much better movie. And I don't think it would not feel like it has an end. Like, it would feel like it has an end. And then you just cut off those last 5 minutes or whatever it is. But the ride up to that is full of such wonderful twists and turns. And it's not often in a movie you feel like, I just don't know where we're headed here. Yeah. And yeah, it's got some social commentary. It's got some black comedy. It's got, it's got really broad themes and it's not afraid to be goofy at times, but also really sweet and poignant. And the imagery, as you said, Devindra, the imagery is beautiful. I mean, there's some shots, specifically there's a sequence where there's a flood in heavy rain that is just spectacular and really evocative. And there's tension. The movie really creates moments of genuine edge of your seat tension. It's really quite something. I just want to cut off the last few moments of this movie.
It is insane to me. They built pretty much everything for this movie. Like that whole neighborhood, that basement apartment built for the movie, the crazy modern house built for the movie, and the second floor doesn't even exist. That was green screen. So this movie just feels like a commitment, such a big commitment in terms of what they're trying to say and what they did to really make this vision happen.
I've been recommending this movie since I saw it to people. I hope more people see it. It's quite something. I just don't think it's, perfect based on what I've said several times now. But, we'll talk about that in spoilers.
All right. Well, I want to get to spoilers pretty quickly. And I'll just say I agree with you folks. I think it's a brilliant movie. I think feels like a masterpiece to me. Feels like something that is going to stand the test of time, that is of its moment. I mean, we're in a very kind of eat the rich moment in terms of our popular culture. I feel like there's been several another movie that came out this year, actually, Us, being a movie that touches on many of the themes that are brought up in this movie. But
I wonder why we're thinking about that.
But I think what's great about this movie is something Jeff brings up is like that it is able to do so many different tones, you know. And my favorite Bong Joon-ho movie is actually really difficult to watch. I'm like that hipster that's like I was into Bong Joon-ho before you guys were. But I mean my favorite Bong Joon-ho movie is Memories of Murder, which
Of course.
is
Of
very
course,
difficult
yeah.
to actually like rent or acquire in the United States. And I actually. It was one of my first DVD reviews I ever wrote for a movie website was Memories of Murder, and I got the
remember,
DVD
yeah.
for free, and at some point I gave it away because I'm like, you know, this is going to be I'll eventually get the Blu-ray of this great movie. There is no Blu-ray, and so now Memories of Murder DVDs are like $80 online. So I feel pretty dumb that I gave that away, and that there's literally no easy way to watch the movie right now unless you buy it off of eBay. So that's a bummer. But what's great about Memories of Murder, and that also exists here, is like the juxtaposition between the ultra dark and the very, very funny. You know, like that there's these moments where like someone might be about to get killed or someone might be in horrible mortal danger or whatever, and then like the next moment he's dropping jokes like left and right. And very few filmmakers can effectively pull that off. As you said, Jeff, very few filmmakers can make that not feel like a total mess. And Bong Joon-ho is one of those filmmakers, and I think he does a great job of it here. I like what this movie has to say about our society, and I think every component of it is effective. I think one thing that you touch upon, Devindra, that I kind of got is that like this is a movie that is both extremely subtle and also very, very not subtle at times. Like,
which is basically
yeah, very
Bong Joon-ho.
broad.
Like
Yeah,
I feel like that's him. You know, big swings and then small little interesting jabs.
right,
Yeah.
like there's like amazing, beautifully subtle moments. Like, oh my gosh, this like look that this character has on their face communicate, like wordless look communicates so much. And then you know, there's another moment that's like, oh wow, so extremely like hit you on the head, obvious that. It veers dangerously close to being, you know, too clunky, but it never does become clunky, in my opinion. So I think it's brilliant, and I think everyone should watch it. And we have a lot more to discuss. So shall we get to spoilers? Spoilers for Parasite starting right now. All right, Jeff. I mean, I'm sure we have a lot of thoughts on the ending, but we can start with your beef with the ending. Like, what did you not like about the ending?
I'm with the movie. I'm with the movie through the stab, you know, through the chaos of that. I'll even buy the dad kind of loses it and stab. You know, he's got a stab to do.
Yeah,
and we're in like over the top, you know, horror movie tropes. You know, kill the rich people for the perceived, you know, injustices. I'm with the movie. I'm even with the movie that he goes and hides down in that place. Like, that's cool. That's a cool use of the established rules of the world that we know, and he can go down there and hide. I'm not with I'll save up and buy that house. That's my solution, is I'm going to buy the house, and then that makes it somehow okay that he can come out because I purchased the house. I don't.
Oh man,
Do you take that as real?
You are breaking my heart right now with this reaction, Jeff. I mean, I think that like
we watch a letter that is quite long that was supposedly delivered over Morse code through a light. I guess he just would do that every day.
Yes,
for
he
a
would do
long
it
time,
every night until
that entire letter. Like,
yep.
Here's the thing.
That is the tragedy of his life. At that point.
I get it. But you're not going to use flowery language when you're Morse code guy.
Listen, you get a lot of time on your hands.
What else is he going to do, Jeff?
Adverbs.
It's not like he has a lot of. It's not like he has a lot of like stuff he has to. You know, he doesn't have a huge to-do list down there.
Yeah, but you know, I'm not buying the adverbs, the prepositional phrases.
All right, Jeff. Here, let me. Okay, acknowledge what your beef is. Let's put aside the adverbs for now, and acknowledge your. Let me try to like. You know, I know what you're like when you get this way. There's no way I can convince you that the ending is brilliant, right? But I'm gonna try. Okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. Okay.
Walking out of the downstairs because he purchased the the house to me, I was just like, no.
What I don't get it. Like, what is it that bothers you about
You
it?
don't
like,
know if that actually happened.
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, I don't think it
Know if
happened.
that actually
Yeah,
happened.
I don't
that's
think it
his
happened in the
vision of
reality of the
future.
film.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
why is that not a viable solution for that problem, in your opinion, Jeff?
He doesn't. There's lots of ways to get him out of there without having to buy the house.
The point, Jeff, is that he is now he is exiled from society. He's a murderous fugitive now. So like the only way, obviously he could escape anytime he wanted to. He goes upstairs to sneak food out of the fridge. Like he obviously can get out of the house.
Buries the body. Yeah.
The problem is not getting out of the house, Jeff. The problem is he cannot exist in society anymore. So that's why the only way he can live with his family is if they acquire that house, so they can all live together. And he'll still live secretly in the house, but like at least then he can like be with his family. He can't be with his family if they're outside of the house.
There's no other way to live secretly than to be in the house where the murders happened.
I mean, I guess if you could find another place to live underground, but they already live underground. You know what I mean?
You
And
want
they
like
were-
the Breaking Bad scenario where he finds a fixer, he finds a new identity, he goes to Alaska. I mean,
All of it feels more plausible than literally the son going, so what I did was, see, I just made lots of money. See,
To me,
that's what I
so-
did.
well,
I just
I
made
think-
lots of money,
Yeah.
and then I
Well,
bought the
let me
house.
say, I think you're getting hung up on taking this so literally,
Yeah,
too, Jeff. Like, it is the heartbreak of that moment of the son from he's still a poor guy. He's from a poor family. His ability to make this dream come true. That's like saying, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grow up. I'm going to go to MIT. I'm going to study to be an astronaut. I'm going to make, I'm going to go to space. And that's my dream. Like, it is such a far off thing. It probably will never happen. He is trapped there forever. And that to me is the real tragedy of it, even though that's what the son will want. There's no escape.
That is
Really?
what the movie is saying. That is literally the thesis of the movie. Is that these people
makes
are
no
unable.
sense.
These people are unable to elevate their station in life. Like that. That is the whole point of the movie. Like that's
I
what
get
that.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I got that through the movie. I got that when we were sitting in the literally lower than the ground level apartment, and we had to sit on the toilet that exploded with poop
by the ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah. I got it, Dave. It wasn't a mystery to me what the movie was saying. I mean, this movie is not subtle.
It's
all
subtle.
the time.
Like I said, it's subtle at times, and then other
Right.
times it's not subtle.
But that theme in particular is it's very clear. I
mean, I think that what I guess I found very moving about that portion, and like it's definitely a distinctively immigrant experience, but it's also you don't need to be an immigrant to like experience the idea of wanting to do better and to provide for your parents. Like that I guess that's also an American idea, but obviously according to this movie it's like a South Korean idea too, is that like that's what is so heartbreaking, is that it is impossible, right? That it's like, hey, I like by making this much money or by surpassing my station in life, I can get my parents out of this horrible situation. That is the dream that every child has.
I think that's lovely, and I think you've expressed it eloquently. I would give the movie credit for expressing that if it didn't seem obvious to me in that moment that there are a lot of easier solutions to this problem. Like if you're gonna elaborately create a problem to express that idea, don't create one where I'm sitting there going, boy, it sure seems easier to just do it a different way. Boy, it sure seems easier to just smuggle him out in the dead of night when he's burying bodies and just go somewhere else.
There's really nowhere else for him to go. I think that's the main thing too. It's like, where is he gonna go? Sneak into North Korea?
He's a wanted murderer. I guess I just don't understand. Yeah. Anyway, but. Sure, like because they live in a basement, Jeff. It's not like they can build like a special room for him. Anyway, it's fine.
We're expected to believe he's going to live there for the rest of his life, and the moment he steps out of it, 100 people are going to be like, "That guy is Murder Man." No, there's been many movies where people are on the lam and trying to, I'm not saying we needed a whole extra movie of him getting out, but it really felt like this is the plan. This is the thing I'm supposed to feel lands on me in my heart, because like if the movie created a situation where that felt like the only answer to this problem, I would be like, wow, that really landed powerfully. I just sat there going, dude, there are other ways to
Haven't
handle
you seen
this.
Breaking Bad?
Yes.
Come on.
Haven't you seen any movie about, the fugitive on the run from things? Like, that fucking happens.
Yeah, it always works out well for them, right? In every one of those movies.
It certainly works out better than just continually doing more.
He could probably live there for a while.
Like, all right, I really am gonna. We really need to change the topic because there's like so many other things to talk about in this movie, and I'll feel really bad if we don't get to them. So, Jeff acknowledged, I knew I would fail, and I did fail. In trying to convince you that it was a good ending, and I think your beef is completely legit. But like, there's like 50 other things we need to talk about. So like, let's.
I would like to reiterate how much I enjoyed this movie, and I literally think that if you just end it a few minutes earlier, that I don't have those thoughts when I walk out going, you really could have fixed it a different way. But that's all I'm saying. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
I will say, so before we get to that whole thing, like, this movie is so smart. I kind of love the way this con builds up in a way that feels very like, this family is just like, they're so in tune with one another. They're like a jazz band. It's like, oh, you're starting a crime? I'm gonna start a crime over here. Let's have like a crime, session going on. Let's get the whole family involved. And once they're all working there, it is working so well. I got to give them like props for that, because they fleece the system. They're, taking the money from this rich housewife, I guess, who she seems to act smart, but she's easily swayed, and the husband's just like never there. So sure, let them do their thing. Let them take their money. Good for them.
Yeah, I agree with you that there's this like great momentum to the con when it's like happening at first. You're like, there's this great moment when like you as the audience are like, oh, like I get what is happening. Like I get what this movie is going to be, or at least the first half of this movie is going to be. And there's this kind of delight in seeing how it is they actually execute it, right? Like you're like, I know how, like I know they're going to go from point A to point B. I don't know exactly how they're going to get there. And there is this like kind of narrative delight in like watching them achieve.
It's an Ocean's movie at a point. Like the heist is just getting into that damn house so they can get some money.
Right. So a few things I want to express my appreciation for this movie. One is the set design. I actually thought was like the first time that the housewife and I guess the guy's sister have the conversation in the kitchen. There's this huge black line separating them in the kitchen, right? Like they're at the table and there's this huge black line, and it's the door to the basement, right? And I'm just like, whoa, like that is a really harsh,
it's like a doorway to hell.
It's like clearly bisecting the two of them, right? Like it's separating the two of them both physically and metaphorically. And then little did I know like how important that black line would become throughout the course of the movie. So
you know what, Dave? I don't think that's up to code. I feel like
that's what they make great pains to say was this like this rock star designer.
They've got kids in the family. You can't just have a freaking black hole in the middle of your kitchen.
It's true. I don't think it's a real house. It's kind of impractical that way.
Well, that's why they over and over say it's this crazy designer that everybody thought was a genius. It's like okay, it makes sense that this house makes no goddamn sense. But I want to touch on something that Devindra brought up about the con thing. I loved the fact that every con movie is like, how do we fleece the people of their money? How do we fleece the people of their money? This is a con movie about how do we get jobs?
Yeah, I want to live. Yes, I want to live.
How do we get money in exchange for goods and services?
Yes,
basically.
The con is literally I'll show them I'll be gainfully employed.
Well, I think
that opening scene of them just like folding the pizza boxes and the freaking gas
fumigation,
coming in, and the father just being like, oh, I guess this is what we're doing now. I'm just gonna keep doing it. I'm watching my video. I'm folding my boxes. I'm surprised the pizza person didn't complain about the boxes being like, not only were these folded incorrectly, they smell like pesticide. What are you serving me here?
I thought for sure that all that was a setup for the dad being the fuck up of the family. Yeah. And I thought he was going to be the one that was just going to completely, as soon as he was brought into the con, because he's sort of the last, well, not the last one, but one of the last ones to be brought into the con. I thought that he was going to be the one that ruins everything for everybody. But, This movie never goes the way I thought it was going to go, which is one of the things I liked most about it.
It's a family affair, as they'd say. Yeah.
A few other things I want to bring up about the movie. One is that like everyone is. I like that the movie allows the audience to like pick a side. You know, I don't think like anyone in the movie is cartoonishly evil in any way. Like neither the rich people or the poor people. I think,
or even the old people, like the old servants.
Everyone is acting in extremely understandable ways, in my opinion. Every party is acting extremely understandably, but there's also like some. You know, we're talking about like when the movie's subtle, when it's not subtle. You know, there's that moment when they're all like clawing for the phone. She's like, she has made this recording and she's going to send it, which brilliant idea and execution of like, hey, I have this video. It's going to destroy your lives if I hit send. And they're all like clawing for it. It's kind of like this this way of showing that like society pits people against each other for the few opportunities that there are, and as evidence in the way that they are literally clawing against each other to to metaphorically win the favor of this rich family.
That moment, by the way, that turn of fortunes, right? When the old housekeeper comes back, crying, they reveal the husband, and then the kids stumble in, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. I have the upper hand.
Yeah.
Now.
I just wanted to get up in the theater and shout, "Wee! What a predicament!" Because really,
I don't understand why the old housekeeper lady waited as long as she did to come back for her husband. But
and then the ending of the movie, there's this moment when the son asks, like, do I fit in here? And he looks at the girl, and she gives him this like, yeah, I guess, because what's amazing about that moment is it didn't even occur to her that would be a question, right?
Oh yeah,
like, and he's looking at all these like rich people, and the way the movie describes it is like, rich people are like poor people with all the creases ironed out, right? A brilliant metaphor. And I think that this idea of like belonging, that moment when she looks at him and is like, and responds like, yeah, I guess you fit in. It's not even something that I thought about, is like a brilliant way of demonstrating the concept of privilege, right? And I think that that's what the movie does a lot, is like there's these like little brilliant character touches that demonstrate like a deeper sense of who these characters are and what they represent, that often can be beautiful and subtle, as in that moment. And sometimes it can be extremely obvious, like when they're clawing their way to the phone. Right. And the movie has it has everything. It has all that stuff. So
yeah, it's basically like presenting privilege as like, a way of viewing the world where you just don't have many problems. It's just like less things to worry about. Whereas, if you're at the bottom, existing is kind of a chief thing to deal with.
I know this is obvious to a lot of people, but I think one thing that this movie really illustrated for me from a visual perspective is being rich is just the right to not be around things and people. And you see this illustrated when they cut between the family who have just undergone the flooding, and they're surrounded by like hundreds of people in this like shelter, and it cuts to like the minimalist house where there's like nothing there, right? And it's like,
literally a castle in the sky, basically, above that whole neighborhood.
It's just the right to not have roommates. It's the right to not be surrounded by stuff and things and people. And I think like the way that it visually represents both the minimalist house and the kind of grimy basement apartment and all the stuff that the family gets into is really effectively illustrates that idea. So. Anyway, okay, just wanted to make sure we mentioned like a few of these amazing things about the movie. There's like actually much more to talk about, but we're kind of running out of time here. I want to give you guys last word because I've been talking a lot bit. Is there anything else you want to mention about the movie that we didn't bring up yet, or shall we wrap it up there?
I feel like it is, well, we're already in spoilers, but man, seeing this, I brought my younger brother. They were in town for Sophia's first birthday. So I was able to bring my younger brother to the Brooklyn Academy of Music to go see this. And it was his first time there. One of my favorite theaters in the city. It is such a perfect movie to see with a crowd. I feel like it is such like, you need that experience to really catch the dramatic highs and lows of this movie. So yeah, I hope if you saw it in a screening where, there weren't many people, I don't know, it may be worth going at a prime time because that crowd experience was fantastic.
I also think we haven't really mentioned the performances are all really good. I think the even the younger characters are all really subtle and beautiful, and I was struck by how different everybody felt, and like the family, the core family, doesn't feel like four of the same person. They all have very distinct individual identities within sort of a unified we're going to grift what we can, mentality, but they all have like a shade that's different within that. And I really like that. I mean, not just their talent, they're not their particular angle on the grift. It's more like even their personality within that and their perspective on the world within that. And I thought that was really cool, and could have been something that would be easily not included in a movie like this, where it could be the four of them as a unit that felt all the same. It's a great movie.
I love the family. Like, clearly the parents are like, well, we know how to exist as being poor, right? And it just involves a lot of hard work. Whereas the kids are more like, well, we're gonna figure out ways to get out of here. Okay, like we're gonna do this. We'll hopefully lift you all up. I love that difference. Kang Ho Sung, who plays the father, I love his face. Whenever his face appears in a movie, like, his characters are so, like, there's so much going on. His face is like always kind of a frown, even when he's like trying to be happy. Like, there's just, I like him as an actor. He also plays the father, kind of like a bumbling. Is he the father? He's a bumbling character in The Host, and we see him like typically a character like this. Honestly, like, he never really gets to be super buttoned up or dapper or anything, but I think he's particularly well done here. And once the sister gets into her grift, she is so good, like such a natural at it. Like, I couldn't help but cheer for her.
Was it your sense that they had done grifts before? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because there's this moment when, she says, like, I set up a trap in the car, and I was like, is that just because they talked about this grift they're doing now, or is it because, like, they've already gone through the motions of something like this before?
I feel like it's not the first time that she's forged documents.
Right. So on that note, as we wrap up, I do want to just mention there is a great thread on Reddit. The title of the thread is Korean Fans of Parasite. Please share jokes and references that Westerners might have missed. And there's like a bunch of like good explanations in here. I think the one that I just want to mention is like something that I thought was a little odd was apparently both the main four people in the poor family and also the underground, the couple, had both started Taiwanese cake shops before. And I thought, like, was that the same Taiwanese cake shop? Like, did they know each other from that? But apparently, like, in Korea, it's an issue with people spending all their retirement funds on small food businesses like fried chicken, and they end up losing money in the business folds. Like, it's apparently like an epidemic or a serious issue, and so like that's what that is in reference to. And there's
in America, we have retirees becoming Uber drivers because there's no other way to survive. So
it's kind of that idea. But yeah, and there's like a bunch more other details in here that are like useful for understanding the movie. I want to thank the people in the Slack Filmcast for sharing this thread in the Parasite spoilers channel. It really helped me to kind of understand some of the other components of the movie. Like, another thing is like the melody from that little song that Jessica sings before entering the rich house, which is amazing. Apparently every kid in Korea knows that melody. It's like an old nursery rhyme. And there's other details in here. So we'll share the link in the show notes, but just wanted to call out that like there are references that we as Americans might have missed, and I'd recommend people educate themselves. So anyway, that's our review of Parasite. We all loved it. It's a movie you should check out, and it's probably my number one movie of the year at this point. So but we'll see. Yep. A lot of competition coming up in the next few months. So stay tuned here. We'll be discussing next week on the podcast, the /filmcast. You can find more episodes of us at /filmcast.com. Email us at /filmcast@gmail.com. Our spoiler bumper comes from filmmaker Kyle Hillinger, and our theme song comes from AdamWarrock.com. This episode was edited by Beatty Zhang. And in the meantime, until next week, Jeff Kanata, where can people find more of your work on the internet?
Well, you can follow me online on Twitter at Jeff Kanata, which is spelled with 2 N's and 1 T. And you heard me shamelessly bring up the Dungeon Run. And I'm going to do it again because I'm very proud of it. It's a fun show with really great actors. We're experiencing epic tale of fantasy adventure, and I hope you check it out. You can do it a number of ways. It's available as a podcast. You can listen to the audio version, which plays a lot like an audiobook. You can find that anywhere you get podcasts by searching for The Dungeon Run. You can also watch it on YouTube. You can find that on YouTube by searching for The Dungeon Run, or you can watch it live as we record it every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time at caffeine.tv/The Dungeon Run. I also do a show about video games called DLC. You can find that at 5by5.tv/DLC.
How about you, Devindra?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter at Devindra. I write about tech at Engadget.com. I'm also hosting the new Engadget podcast, so be sure to check that out. Just search for the Engadget podcast on your favorite client.
Vincenzo Natali recently directed a movie called In the Tall Grass on Netflix. And over at my podcast Culturally Relevant, at culturallyrelevantshow.com, I did a feature-length commentary of that film with Vincenzo. He is one of my favorite people to interview, and he's really fascinating in talking about the filmmaking process. So check that out. Even if you have already, like, I would argue you don't even need the to watch the movie along with it, especially if you've seen it already. The interview, in my opinion, or the commentary is just that interesting, even without needing to watch the images. So check it out at culturallyrelevantshow.com. Next week, we're going to be discussing Terminator Dark Fate. Terminator Dark Fate, which is apparently a reboot of the Terminator franchise post-Terminator 2. Jeff Kanata, what do you think is our likelihood of actually enjoying this movie?
I'm going in cautiously optimistic. I don't think we can call it a reboot, right? It's like a side boot or like an in boot. It's half a boot. It's not a reboot.
No fate but what we make, guys. Come on.
Yeah. It's I mean, Devindra, I think you're pretty psyched about it. Yeah, like people have said it's the third best Terminator film. That's all I'm hoping for. If it's if it's the third best Terminator film, that is a massive success, in my opinion.
Well, it depends on how far the gulf is between second best and third best.
What do you think is? I guess what is?
Say, there's currently a third best Terminator movie. So
here's a question:
What do you, the Sarah Connor Chronicles?
What do you think is the third best Terminator movie right now? What do you think is the third best Terminator movie?
I have to look at all the Terminator movies real quick.
I would say Terminator 3 probably. I mean, Terminator 3 is not that good. But I think it's better than Salvation, and certainly better than Genesis.
It's watchable compared to those. You guys have never seen the TV show, but the TV show was fantastic. So that is my number 3.
There were moments in Salvation that are pretty effective.
Yeah, I agree. There are great moments and really cool, like robot designs.
Let's not do this.
There's like the robot harvester. Okay, we'll talk about this next week. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.